Lydia de Vega, and this is Rappler Talk Sports. Today we will talk about Philippine sports, in particular about the passing of the great Lydia de Vega and her impact then and now. Lydia was one of a kind Filipino athlete. Because of her overpowering performances in the Asian Games and the Asian Athletics Championships in the 80s, she was dubbed Asia's fastest woman. Pero bukod sa mga panalo niya sa track, meron pa siyang charisma na ibang klase si Lydia. Like, she was a proud Filipina. At tuwing tumatakbo siya at nananalo, conscious siyang bitbit niya ang bandila ng Pilipinas. Tuwing at, at ang bitbit niya ang puso rin ng sambayan ng Pilipino. And I witnessed this because I was a sports writer at that time. For this episode, we'll be talking to the incumbent Lawag City Mayor Michael Keon, the brains and executive director of the highly successful Gintong Alay program during that period when Lydia was the queen of athletics. It was Gintong Alay which produced Lydia and a host of other world caliber Filipino athletes. Because of Gintong Alay, the Philippines was an athletics powerhouse in the 80s. Later, Gintong Alay produced more successful Filipino athletes. Thank you, Mayor, and welcome to Rappler Talk Sports.
Thank you for having me, Chito.
Wag na tayo magpadali-dali, punta na tayo sa exciting part agad. Pero before we go to the details of Gintong Alay Lydia, I would like to ask you, why is sports important to a country, especially because you became a leader at that time? Why do you think is it important to a country?
Because it's a way of channeling the energies of our young men and women. You know, life has many temptations. You know, alcohol, drugs, etc. And being able to channel your energy into physical activity keeps you healthy, and it oxygenates your brain, and it helps you as a student, and it helps your body to build up its resistencia. Sports is an integral part of being a human being, and I was a distance runner for many years.
Yes, I know you were into sports talaga, di ba? You were an athlete yourself, di ba?
Yes. I've played virtually all sports. I've played baseball. I've played soccer. I've played cricket, Australian rules football, rugby, swimming, Thai boxing, track and field, etc. So,
What was the overriding reason for why at that time uh, Gintong Alay was created?
well,
Were we a doormat ba or something? Or
no, Chito. This is how things evolved. I was a runner. I studied at the University of the Philippines, and I was part of the varsity team, and I competed in the UAAP, and I held the UAAP 5,000-meter record for about 5 years. I was the UAAP
it's
champion,
interesting.
and it was while training at UP that I met many athletes, and it was also during that time that Patafa would have cross-country races on the weekend and road races, and the way they ran their races left much to be desired. It was not
Okay,
handled properly. Imagine they would have races at 11:30 in the morning when it was masyadong mainit,
mainit na.
and people would run without shoes, and people would have bloodied feet, etc., etc. And what I did was, at that time, I created the UP Roadrunners Club. And so we had many top runners running in UP at that time. And it was suggested that why don't I reach out, being the nephew of President Marcos, why don't I reach out to him and present him with a possibility of creating a running program? And this was the the nucleus of Gintong Alay, and it was because of this idea to create an ideal training program that Gintong Alay came about.
Parang it started, if I understand, based sa kwento mo, and as far as I can remember, it was really for athletics, di ba?
It was purely for running at the start, Chito.
Happy.
It wasn't for anything else, and it was created on October 31, 1979. Through letter of instruction number 955. And
Okay.
and because of that, we had approximately 20 athletes at the very start, and Lydia was part of the original 20 athletes that went to Baguio to begin the Gintong Alay program.
That was they were the pioneering 20 Gintong Ali athletes. So, but how did you
Yes.
discover? How did you to use them?
Well,
How did you
well, well.
audition them? Di ba? Oh.
No, no, no. We reached out to the Philippine Track and Field Association, and they were friends. Because I knew many people within the running community.
Mhm.
People pointed out those athletes that were up and coming and that had potential, and a listahan was made, and they were included.
And Lydia was already, I mean, there was already attention. There was conscious na yung mga tao that there's this
Lydia
talented
was
girl from
already a
Ekawayan.
yeah, Lydia was already a good junior runner at that time. She had
Oh,
potential. All the
parang,
runners that came up had potential already. That's
oo,
what was already said to us by all the various coaches that we had talked to.
like they were a product of palurong pambansa, something like that. They were
Oh
seen there,
no,
not
no.
necessarily.
Yes, I guess so. Various meets at that time. Yes.
Mm. What did you, when you, syempre hindi nyo pa masyadong kilala si Lydia, hindi nyo pa lang sana, pero at first, what did you notice about her?
Please understand that when we first went up to Baguio, there was no running track at that time.
Ah, wala pa,
So
okay.
there's
It was
in
just teacher's camp.
1979. In 1979, there was one synthetic track, and that was at Marikina
Yes,
Stadium. There was
yes.
only one
In the
oval.
In the whole Philippines?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
And so we went to Baguio. We trained at PMA initially, and
Mm.
then later we trained at Burnham Park, and that eventually we were able to pinpoint Teachers Camp. Teachers Camp had a very large grassy area, which was big enough to put a track, and we placed the track there, and that's where the Gintong Alay camp was created at Teachers Camp. And
Mm.
so we began to train our athletes. Now, please understand that I brought in my running coach from Australia. I
Okay.
was also training in Australia. I studied at a school called St. Patrick's College, which
Mm.
was in a city called Ballarat, which is outside of Melbourne. In fact, I was the school champion. I was the school champion. I was the Ballarat junior champion. And Tony Benson, was my science teacher.
Oh,
And
okay.
Tony Benson was the 2,000 and 3,000 meter Australian record holder. He was a sub 4 minute miler. He was a Pan Pacific Games 1,500 meter champion. And subsequently, he competed in the 1972 5,000 meter, 1972 Olympics, the Munich Olympics in the 5,000 meters. So he was a very good runner. I brought him over and he began to train the athletes. So we already saw potential in Lydia. And in our first competition, which was in May of 1980, when we had
Less than a year, huh? Less than a year.
when we had the Gintong Alay versus UAAP competition at Marikina, Lydia de Vega ran the 400 meters and I believe 52 point. I should have had it the specific time with me. I believe it's 52.24. In so doing, she broke the Asian Games record, the Southeast Asian Games record, and the Philippine record all in that one race. And it was then that we realized that we had a potentially world class athlete.
How old
And
was Lydia? How old was Lydia then?
Lydia was 16 years old. 16 years, Chito.
Mm.
And this is why I'm sorry to say this, but Lydia never, despite the fact that Lydia went on to win maraming medalya in the Southeast Asian Games, the Asian Track and Field Championships, and dalawang gold medal sa Asian Games,
Mm.
her real potential was in the 400 meters.
Oh, yes. Okay. Pero, in fact, that was the first time she broke the record, the 400. No? Pero, anyway,
Yes.
going ahead, before
Yeah,
going ahead,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's just go back. So that's where we saw that she had world class potential. And then, of course, she also trained for 100, 200. She was training 100, 200, 400, and the
Mm,
4x400 meter relay. Okay. And
mm.
in the 1981 Southeast Asian Games, she won the gold in the 100 and she won the gold in the 400. Okay.
Yes, yes,
So,
that's where I first saw her. I remember I
yes,
was just a student then, and distinctly remember the president raising Lydia's hand and looking very
yes.
happy. You know?
Yes, the president, and please understand this, and this, people should understand this. President Marcos, when I presented the program to president, in fact, I presented it to him through my mother, the former governor of Ilocos Norte,
Mm-hmm.
Governor Elizabeth Marcos Quillon, his sister. I presented the
Mm-hmm.
program through her. He then directed me to deal with the Philippine Olympic Committee and later with PATAFA with Governor Jose Saring at that
Yes,
time.
Governor Sering, yes.
Yes, and I he allowed me. In fact, the initial budget was 1.7 million. That was the
Mm.
initial budget of Gintong Alay,
In the
and
1970,
he,
1979,
yes,
1980.
yes,
Okay.
and he wanted to see the results of Gintong Alay first.
Mm-mm.
So I was able to show him because in
Put
that
your money where
competition,
your mouth is, ah. Put your money where your mouth
yes,
is. Parang ganon.
exactly. And it wasn't just uh, uh, Lydia's performance. There were other athletes that broke other Philippine records at that time. And once the president saw that, he realized that I had put together a good sports program, a good track program. And then he began to support me. And as you know, Gintong Alay was then expanded from being a track program to a
Mm-hmm.
track and field program. And
Mm-hmm.
later, we took over from the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development and became the national program, Buong Sports, all the
Mm-hmm.
sports.
Mm-hmm. Tama, tama. I was just going to ask maybe before we go to other Lydia stories. Usually, during that time, other successful countries at that time were, I remember Indonesia was also very successful in sports in the region. No? Now, my question is it important that for a country, a developing country, to have a strong man who will insist on something like a sports program for sports to succeed?
Um, for a developing country, perhaps that scenario is applicable. Okay.
Mm. Para kasi you had a direct line to the palace. Eh. Parang ganun.
Yes, yes, and that helped me to a certain extent because despite the fact that there was martial law and
Mm.
despite the fact that my uncle was a strong man,
Mhm.
I was still subjected to politics. Please understand that.
Ah, really?
Okay.
How?
Oh, well, I'd rather not go into it. Okay. It's it's
Okay.
it's it's medyo sensitive.
Kasi
Okay,
from a
but
fan's point of view, para kasing infallible ka rin at that time. Eh. I mean, I was just a fan.
yes.
I don't know. Ano. Anyway,
Yes,
sige, okay.
yes, but please understand that the Philippines is a very political country. Okay,
Mhm.
and anyway, having said that, I feel that my relationship with the president helped me to be able to put together a concrete sports program that was systematic. Okay, we brought in very good coaches. In order for a sports program to succeed, firstly, you have to have the proper resources. Number one, you have to have the best sports equipment. You have to have the best sports facilities. You have to ensure that you choose the best athletes. You
Mhm.
have to ensure that you have the best exposure. And in order to do this, you have to have very good people. You have to have a very good coaching system. And this is what we did slowly but surely. Because what I did in track and field, I also began to do in other sports such as boxing, bowling,
Mhm.
swimming, etc. Okay, so um, yes, I felt that at that time my relationship with the president and the political system being what it was helped us in putting together a concrete sports development program because I needed a lot of support. okay,
Mhm.
and it was medyo you, I think you can see from even now the politics in Philippine sport. You know, you're talking about the Philippine Olympic Committee. As of now, I think there are about 50 NSAs. At my
Yes.
time, there was like 25 to 30 NSAs. And
Mhm.
all NSAs have their politics, okay? And this
Oh.
is why you have to tread a fine line. And because of my relationship with the president, it helped me in the sense that I was able to get directives from the president. You have to understand, Chito, that the majority of the athletes in Gintong Alay were members of the armed forces of the
Yes.
Philippines.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and this is why. So the president directed then, for example, with the PNP, he directed then General Fidel Ramos. He
Mm.
directed General Ver. He directed the AFP hierarchy in order to work with me.
Mhm.
And for example, all of our track and field athletes who came to Baguio, they're all studiante, they're all students. So they
Mm.
all cross enrolled with the schools in Baguio. So we had to work very closely with the Department of Education. So having
Mm.
the backing of the president allowed me to be able to get support from all these different government agencies.
Mhm.
So it did help.
Do athletes deserve? I mean, if I may use the word pampering that we give them.
No, we didn't
We,
pamper our athletes. Chito, please understand. I repeat, we did not pamper our athletes, but we
mhm.
gave
Mhm.
our athletes what they needed. For example,
Mm.
food is fuel. Our athletes ate very well.
Mhm.
Okay, we had very good cooks in the camp. We made sure that people ate properly, that there were a lot of vegetables. We ensured that there was food supplements. We ensured that our
Mhm.
athletes were given vitamins. And another thing that's extremely important, what people don't understand, especially with runners, massage therapy is very important because
Mhm.
massage therapy ensures that the muscles do not become rock solid and that you don't have injuries. Okay, so
Mhm.
we had first
There's
class
a
masseurs.
science talaga, di ba? There's a
We had
science talaga
first
behind
class
that.
masseurs. We even brought in top class chiropractors from Australia that physically manipulated the athletes. This is what people don't understand. Okay, uh, we had very good coaches. The athletes ate very well. They were given first class and expensive supplements. They were given massage therapy. They were given chiropractic treatment. We did
Mm.
all of these things. In fact, that was the secret of Gintong Alay. We didn't really talk about this very much. And this is
Mm.
why, Chito, you will see that because of this, over a period of between 1979 to when Tony Benson left, he left in the middle of 1983.
Mhm.
We broke more than 100 Asian, Southeast Asian, Philippine records. In fact, we were tabulating, we were calculating that I believe more than 150 records were broken
Mhm.
between 1979 and when my leadership of Philippine sports ended with EDSA in 1986.
Mhm. So it's the athletes deserve all this
Of
in a
course,
way. Oh.
if you want athletes to perform at their best, I mean, what's the
Mm.
point in having a sports program and
Mm.
spending money and having mediocre performances and not training your athletes to their best possible potential? What's the point?
Mhm. Mhm.
You're just wasting money. I
Mhm.
mean, we're training athletes to represent the country. We're training athletes hoping that they will win and that the Philippine flag, you know, will be
Mhm.
hoisted, and it brings honor and glory to the country. Okay, this is a question of patriotism. This is a
Mhm.
question of building up, the reputation of our country,
Mhm.
and that's what nations do with sports.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is uh, you mentioned yesterday when we had a short conversation the dynamics with people who are, it's particularly going back to Lydia. There was I was a fan back then, and I remember there was a parang minsan may friction with kasi Lydia was a teenager and a young probinsyana, and Tatang de Vega was very like any Filipino father, very protective. I mean, do you have anecdotes or
Well,
cuento about that?
Chito, Lydia was just what buried yesterday, okay,
Mm,
and I would rather in the future I'm planning on having a press conference in which I will talk about the history and the legacy of Gintong Alay,
mm,
and I'm going to set the record straight because I'm sorry
okay.
to say this, but there are certain false narratives that are being
Mm,
created, okay, which I will not
mm.
go into. I will
Not
not talk
now.
about them
Not
now
yet.
if
Not
you
yet.
don't mind. Okay? Please understand, and this is why I'm saying that despite the fact that my uncle was president at that time,
Mm,
I was still subjected to politics.
mm.
Okay? And it was hard. Um,
It wasn't like everything was very easy for parang ganon, hindi ba ganon?
no, things were not very easy. To build up the type of program that we had, it was hard. I mean, there was maraming detalye. There were so many details, and 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 people just see the pictures and they just see the
That's right.
videos.
That's right.
That's all they see. They don't see what it took for us to produce those performances and
Mm,
what we had to go through in order to be able to create a mass-based a program like that for track and field, and then later a program for the entire sports system within the country. People
mm.
have to understand that at one point, Gintong Alay was considered the model sports program in Southeast Asia, and
That's
I
right.
actually had representatives of Indonesia, representatives of Malaysia, of their sports organizations and of their track programs coming to Baguio,
Mm-hmm.
asking us about how we ran our program, asking us the details of what we did, because people were amazed, okay, about the progress under Gintong Alay, and even the Burmese were surprised because the Burmese were the ones dominating distance running at the time, and we
Mm-hmm.
were able to dismantle the Burmese dominance of middle and especially long distance, especially
Mm-hmm.
5 and 10,000 meters. Okay, this is what people don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
and and
Sino Bigeo ba yun? Hector Bigeo? Tama ba?
yeah, well, no, Hector, and this is what's sad. Okay,
Okay.
Hector until now is still the 3,000 meter steeplechase record holder until now.
Wow.
Okay,
Oh.
and he shouldn't be. Okay, his
Oo.
record should have been demolished a long time ago, but it's not.
Mhm.
Okay, Hector is taga Baguio. Okay, and and there were many runners from the mountain provinces, and this is why we put our training camp in Baguio, because of high altitude training.
Mhm.
Everybody knows that if you want to be a good distance runner, you try and train at high altitude. Who are all the best distance runners in the world? They are Kenyans and they
Mhm.
are Ethiopians. And where do they come from? They come from high altitude. They train at 7 to 8,000 feet above sea level. Okay.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
why they dominate. People have to understand that. And that's why in all training programs, the Russians send their athletes to high altitude. The Americans send their athletes to high altitude in Colorado. Uh, Mexico already has high altitude. Everyone knows that. And that's why I don't know why hanggang ngayon they have allowed the track in teachers camp to deteriorate
Oo nga,
because
oo.
now
That's
distance
sad.
runners are not training in high altitude.
Uh, you mentioned about training and middle distance, and when we were talking about Lydia, although she became top caliber in the 200s and 100s, and I was telling you, Anna, there was an analysis I remember reading that Lydia's power was in the second half of the race. So, why did is there a story why she didn't? In fact, you said that she was this. You found she set the record agad sa 400. Why didn't she stay in the 400? Is there a story
because
there?
because it was easier for her to just run in the 100 and the 200 meters. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To train at the international level for 400 meters, she had to train much harder. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to say this. This is why I didn't want to talk about this, but there was interference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was interference from certain sectors
Mm-hmm.
who influenced her not to run the 400 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why i will I will elaborate on that in the future. And it was
Mm-hmm.
really a pity because it's the same thing with Isidro del Prado. Del
Mm, Isidro.
Prado
Yes, yes.
was our 400-meter champion. He was Asian champion.
Yes.
Del Prado's real event was 800 meters. And please understand this,
Okay.
that he won the 800 meters um, in the 81 Southeast Asian Games. He ran 148, I forget what it was, 148.5, 148.8. And he was so good that imagine his 400-meter time uh, was so fast. He was running 45 seconds, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And please understand that in the Olympics, if you can run around, if you can run sub, even now,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the Diamond League,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the various track and field competitions in Europe, when you
Mm-hmm.
see the European leg, people are running 400 meters and winning there in around 144. Okay. This
Mm-hmm.
is 30 years later. Dell was running it at 148 in 1981. All he
Mm-hmm.
had to do was keep on training, and he would have easily have gone down to 142, 143,
Ah, yun
144.
talaga? Talaga? You
And
think so?
of course,
Mm-hmm.
and he would have been in an Olympic final, possibly an Olympic medalist, and even possibly an Olympic gold medalist. And it was also because of interference that he didn't pursue the 800 meters and that he
Mm-hmm.
remained with the 400. And this is
Mm-hmm.
why it was so sayang that both Lydia and Dell had the potential to go beyond the Asian level. And remember that, and with all due respect to Lydia and to Lydia's memory, I'm not trying to destroy her legacy. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to say is that please understand that she was a sprint queen of Asia because she
Yes.
won the
Mm-hmm.
Asian Games 100 meters twice. Okay, 1982 Asian Games, 1986 Asian Games.
Mm-hmm.
But when she went to the Olympics and competed in the 100 meters, she was eliminated agad in the 100-meter heats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she was not good enough to be able to beat the Jamaicans. She was not good enough to be able to beat the Black American athletes or the very strong European runners like
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
Ukrainians, the Russians. You know, that's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if she had gone to 400, she could have beaten them all.
Mm. Kaya
I'm
lang
saying
kasi,
that.
Mayor, yung sprints kasi ano eh, glamorous eh.
The sprints are
Sprints eh.
glamorous and the
Mm.
sprints are easy because you remember athletes, I was telling you
Mm.
before, they have a combination of fast twitch and slow twitch muscles. A sprinter has a preponderance of fast twitch. A
Mm-hmm.
long distance runner has a preponderance of slow twitch. Lydia was a preponderance of fast twitch, but she also had slow twitch, which
Mm-hmm.
which resulted in her being able to run 400 meters. Please understand that her rival in Asia at that time was an Indian runner by the name of P.T. Usha.
PT Usha, yes,
Yes,
yes. I
and she was
covered
able,
her in the
and
Asian
PT,
Championships.
yes, and she beat PT, and PT beat her. But look what PT Usha did. PT Usha eventually, from running the 100, 200, eventually ran the 400, and then she ran the
Mm.
400 low hurdles and won the bronze medal in the Olympics
Ah, talaga?
and won the bronze medal in the 400-meter low hurdles in the Olympics. And Lydia was beating her. And that's exactly what I'm saying about the 400 meters.
Mm. Uh, Kasi I remember when we covered the Asian Championships in Kuala Lumpur. sikat na
Yep.
taxi DJ, and the Malaysians, when we arrived there with the whole airplane load of athletes, they were not looking at the other athletes. They were just asking. There was a guy shouting at the airport, "Where is Lydia de Vega? Where is he?" Wala, wala. Siya lang ang pinansin kami, hindi kami pinansin. She was the star.
Yes,
She was the star.
exactly. It was exactly, and there were people who rode on her and who wanted to
Mm.
benefit from her.
There was a point that
Okay.
she even got injured, di ba, when competing. Was that because of training or something? Or but she
I'm
competed
not sure
injured.
about her injury. All
Mm.
athletes get injured every now and then. I mean,
Uh,
it's impossible to train at that standard and with that caliber of training and not occasionally get injured. Okay, it's
is
hard.
it okay if I ask you something about present day situation about, for example, how uh, we are dealing with present stars like Obiena or Paul Volter? I mean, do you think?
Well, yeah, go on.
Yes, yes. Do you think uh, they deserve also the same support that? What's your opinion about that?
Well, I'm very disappointed in the present sports setup. I'm not saying that, you know, we're not doing well in sport in a
Mm-mm.
general sense. I mean, Heidi
Mm.
Diaz won the first Olympic
Yes,
gold
yes.
medal.
Mm-mm.
Okay, and then you see the women's football team winning the ASEAN Cup. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we this is what I keep on saying over and over again. There's so much talent in this country, but the problem is the systema. The problem is the system. In track and field, the way Obiena has been treated, and it's because I believe it's because the issues surrounding Lydia's demise brought the focus of people on track and field,
Mm-hmm.
and even brought out the issue of Obiena. And
Mm-hmm.
I commented about Obiena that it was such a pity that a person of the caliber of Obiena was being treated in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, um, this is what I'm talking about politics in sport. Okay, now they have now reinstated Obiena, and he's now an athlete in good standing in Patafa. Well, he should have always been an athlete of good standing. There were issues to do about his financial support and financial remuneration coming from Patafa. There were a whole lot of issues surrounding that, but I won't go into that. I just feel that I hope that the administration of my beloved cousin Sin, Apo Presidente BBM, that he really does something about Philippine sport because we have so much potential. Chito, after Gintong Alay and when I came to Ilocos Norte, and when BBM was first elected governor, I created the Ilocos Norte Sports Development Council, in which we trained athletes dito sa Ilocos Norte. And we were successful. And I traveled a great deal. I traveled buong Filipinas, and I attended regional meets. I attended the Palarong Pambansa. I attended the Mindanao Games. And Chito, I saw so much talent. And there's so much talent
It's out
falling through
there.
falling through the cracks of the systema. And it's
Ah.
really a pity. It's really a pity, huh? And sorry to say this, huh? You don't have to look for Phil Am, Phil Brit, Phil Aussie,
Mm-mm.
Phil this, Phil that, in order to uh, fill up the fact that you're not having a proper training program in the country. Okay, and that you compensate by looking for talent overseas.
Mm-hmm.
You must understand that when you have a really good concrete sports development system wherein you're training hundreds of athletes in all of the sports, these people, especially local athletes, most local athletes come from the lower classes of our society.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and by being athletes, they are helped economically together with their families. There's an economic recompense to do with their athletic performance. Okay. And this is also a way of helping our people. And this is why, if you handle a sports program properly, if you handle taxpayers' money properly, there's benefits for everyone. There's
Mhm.
benefits for the nation, for the image of the nation, and there's an economic benefit for athletes and for their families. Do you understand what I'm
Parang
saying?
talagang parang talagang Mayor, you don't have to go outside and searching. Well, actually, sa akin, some of the foreigner Filipino foreign are really outstanding. But the problem is parang hindi ma-attach yung mga tao sa kanila the way they were attached to the homegrown talents. Yung mga
Exactly.
Pilipinong, I mean, di ba,
It
they were not that
it
attached, di ba? I don't know. Baka is it just me
no.
imagining or
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. That's correct. And the fact that Lydia came from Mekawayan, Bulacan, okay,
and speaks
she,
Tagalog?
yeah, and speaks Tagalog, and she's you might categorize her as coming from a family that you would categorize as common tao, you know.
Yes, that's right. Masa, di
Yeah,
ba? Masa.
you know, this is a way of of helping our people, okay, and instead of looking overseas and because in a way, I hate to say this, sport is like war. Okay, you go to
Mhm.
war, you fight, you fight other countries. If you hire people from overseas, it's like having mercenaries. Now, of course, it's not exactly like that, of course,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
I'm just saying that we have so much talent in this country. Let's look for that talent. That's why there has to be proper talent scouting, which we don't really have. And the problem with the Patrino system, and the problem with how things are run in the country, where it's always who you know, not what you know. Okay, that people get selected for different things, and are able to be absorbed into various programs, projects, whatever, no, because of who you know. Okay, with sport, it's your talent. It's not who you know, it's your talent. and
mhm.
and this is why sport is a good system if it's handled correctly and if it's not politicized. And the Philippines, and the cultura of the Philippines being what it is, it's hard to do away with politics. But when it comes to sport, that should be one aspect of our society that, as much as possible, you reduce politics as much as you can.
Uh, parang the way I understand it, you're saying that there are still other untapped Lydia de Vegas out there, other
Absolutely.
top athletes.
Chito, you should understand that when I travel, I mean, I traveled everywhere. I went to Mindanao, I traveled everywhere. And I saw athletes. I have a very good eye, being a former athlete, being a former coach, because I even coached in UP. I
Mhm,
was the assistant coach in UP when I was also a runner. I also
mhm.
helped coach other athletes. I've read many coaching manuals. I had a very good coach. I studied track. Okay. So
So you
I
know
have
one
an
when you see one, parang ganon.
exactly. And I saw a lot of talent. And we would tell the local sports officials, "Oh, tignan mo, you have a very good athlete here. Consider that person. That person has potential." And most of the time, it fell on deaf ears, and nothing happened. Okay,
Mm,
and that's why it's really a pity. That's why,
that's
if
right.
you can really create a really good systematic program that has good people in it who really care for the welfare of the athletes, we can really, this nation can be a sporting nation. I'm really telling you. And you probably don't think of the Philippines as a sporting nation. uh, yes, we have a problem with size. Okay, this is why basketball can be a problem. Okay, regardless of people's love of basketball, okay, basketball can be a problem. Even maybe volleyball, but I'm not sure, because in volleyball we really have potential there as well, especially women's volleyball. It's just the way things are run. Okay, so there. So
Yeah, so that was just that was the final question I was going to ask Sana. Can we find another Lydia de Vega?
Absolutely.
You think so?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you just have to really look. You
Mm-hmm.
have to really look. You have to have good talent scouts. And this is where grassroots development is important. To have grassroots development, provinces and cities need to have good training programs where they have, and that's where the Philippine Sports Commission has got to ensure that in all regions, they have offices where they have talent scouts,
Mm-hmm.
and the talent scouts go to all of the different competitions, and they watch the competitions, and you can see talent, but
Parang
you know
some people are not aware that they have it in them. Kasi pwede ganun eh, di ba?
yes,
Siguro.
yes, and you must understand that you can see talent, but you have to take that talent and test the talent, meaning you have to train them for a certain period of time and really see, because I can see talent, but you're not 100% sure. So
Mm,
those people that you think are talented, you get them and you begin to train them, and then you will see very quickly over a period of maybe weeks and months whether these people have the potential talaga. And that's what you
mhm,
have to do.
mhm. Okay, that's very nice. It was very stimulating conversation. It was an enlightening and talaga napaka interesting. I was a fan, kaya I was a fan of Gintong Alay and the athletes. Thank you for being candid and frank. Thank you, Mayor, and I hope to catch up with you next time.
Thank you for having me, Chito, and be ready, because I will really speak out in the future, because no, there are many things I want to talk
Mm-mm-mm.
uh, about track and field, about sport, but specifically track and field, and about the legacy of Gintong Alay. There are certain things that have to be said. People must understand that there are people saying, "Oh, do you want to go back to Gintong Alay?" Not necessarily. Do you want to go back to sport? No, not necessarily. I mean,
Mm-mm.
a part of me does. A part of me would love to help in sports
Mm-mm.
development. But
Mm-mm.
I'm the Amati Ciudad of Lawag. I'm the mayor of Lawag. And
Mm.
despite everything that happened in the elections, the people re-elected me. So
Mm-mm.
I feel compelled to pay back to the people here in Lawag. That's why I would not leave Lawag. But having said that, I would like to contribute to the reshaping of sports development in the Philippines.
Mhm. I think whoever sits, or for example, even if you, the country deserves something better than what is
Of
happening now.
course.
Well,
Of course,
the
Chito.
country.
Of course.
Anyway, maraming salamat, Mayor, for giving us some of your time, precious time.
Sige, maraming salamat, Chito. See you
Okay.
again in the future.
Yes.
Okay?
Again, this is Rappler Talk Sports. I'm Chito de la Vega. Thank you for watching.